This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at the BatmanUniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Hi, my name is Peter Tomasi.
Hi, this is James Hyman IV.
Hi, I'm Dan Jurgens.
Hey, I'm Dustin Wynn.
This is Jim Lee.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Mark Hamill speaking.
This is Kevin Conroy.
This is Tim Sale.
Hello, everyone. I'm Batman, and you're listening to my podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Batman Universe Comics Podcast, Season 12, Episode 26, our penultimate episode before our season finale for Season 12, the year 2020. I'm your host, Ian, and with me I have...
This is Steph.
And this is Theo.
And we have some pretty exciting stuff to talk about today in Batman Comic Universe news. We had Comic-Con experience in Sao Paulo, Brazil going on over the weekend, and a lot of comic news was dropped. Most of it was about the creative teams after Future State, so starting in March. Solicits are probably going to drop this Friday, so we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about next episode in our finale, but this time they sort of gave us a preload with news on Detective Comics. Peter Tomasi and Brad Walker and Doug Mahnke will not be returning to Detective Comics. Instead, writer Mariko Tamaki and artist Dan Mora, who did the short in Detective Comics 1027, and they are doing Dark Detective for Future State for a 4-issue miniseries, are going to take over for Detective Comics. I fully expect Dan Mora to just be on for 2 to 3 issues because he's got other series he's working on. But Mariko Tamaki has currently been on Wonder Woman. She's wrapping up in December in this month. And she will be joining Detective Comics in, well, technically, next month. Becky Cloonan and Tim Sheridan, who are writing a Future State Wonder Woman arc, will be writing Wonder Woman picking up after Tamaki. And I'm kind of disappointed because I actually am really liking Tamaki's Wonder Woman run a lot more than anything since Greg Rucka, quite honestly. I actually have really enjoyed it, and that's unusual because a lot of the stuff they've done since Rucka left at 25 has been really underwhelming. But I'm excited to see what she has to do with Detective Comics. I guess it's really going to depend how we like her on Future State and then in March. What do you guys think?
Well, I haven't been following the Tamaki's run on Wonder Woman. I kind of gave up on her after James Robinson came in and blew it all to hell, and so I dropped Wonder Woman. So I haven't been following since she's been on the title, but I am familiar with her for her run on She-Hulk back after Civil War II. She took over the title at that point, which was really good as she dissected the different personas of Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk after the death of Bruce Banner and her herself, nearly dying at the hands of Thanos. So I am very familiar with her. I enjoy her writing. As long as we aren't inundated with the likes of Mr. Teat, I am looking forward to seeing, what she brings to Detective. And, it's kind of monumental being, that she's going to be the first female writer, regular writer on the book. So as much as I am a Peter Tomasi fan and hate to see him drop off, I'm looking forward to seeing what Mariko Tamaki brings to the Dark Knight. And, who can ever not want to see the art of Dan Mora, whether you're following him on Once and Future or some of his other things. So I'm quite excited for that.
in addition to being disappointed about losing Wonder Woman, because I really would like the Trinity to have, a good series of runs, and with the new writer on Superman, and I mean, I wasn't hating Bendis, as some of my co-hosts are, but I also wasn't loving it. So a new writer on Superman, and Tamaki on Wonder Woman, and Tynan on Batman. I felt like we were going to be in a good place, and I would have loved to see that for 6 months. But maybe the upcoming teams will be just as good. I prefer to stick with something that's working rather than try something that I'm not sure about. I think the shape-up for Detective could be good. I've mostly been miss on Tamaki's stuff for DC. I haven't read much of her Marvel stuff, but I didn't think much of Supergirl being super, and I didn't like the bits of the Harley Quinn young adult novel that she wrote that I read. Now, I didn't read the whole thing, but so it could have been much better. I did really like the art. Steve Pugh, who also works on Wonder Woman with her, but I don't know. She's been kind of hit and miss, so I'm hoping that Detective Comics will be a miss, and I'll be rooting for her. And of course, we will be covering it.
No, you want Detective Comics to be a hit.
Isn't that what I said?
You said miss.
Oh, you're right. I want it to be a hit. I want it to be a hit. Okay, second part of our news from, again, Comic-Con Experience in Brazil. We have Teen Titans Academy by Tim Sheridan on writing and Rafa Sandoval on art. We don't know a whole lot about this. I'm not even sure how much Batman is going to be connected, the Batman universe, and we probably won't be covering it except maybe in Greater Gotham, which is going to be starting later this episode, so I'm very excited. But, I mean, it sounds like a fun idea, though. The explicit mentorship of young heroes by older heroes. That's a cool thing.
I like that idea. These are babies, and they're basically self-taught superheroes. And it's like, that's a cute idea. But, the older people are all alive with experience for a reason. And I think it's a big downfall as young people to completely ignore the older generation. Yes, there are some things that older people are just crazy. But they're also alive, and they've made it through a lot of life, and they have a lot of wisdom to bestow on us. And I feel like that's a good thing that they're doing a whole series based on that. Do you know if it's a limited, or is it the opposite of that?
They're listing it as an ongoing on their official press announcement. They have said that some things are limited, so I think they would say if they meant it to be known as a limited. But, sometimes companies will try something out and reveal that was a limited later on.
Do we know if the teams are permanent? I mean, I'm sure the older Titans are, but I know they're bringing back Crush. I'm not sure who else. Are they bringing back more the old team from this last iteration of the Titans?
I'm looking at the cover art for the number one. I don't recognize anyone in there.
Yeah, I know, and the only reason why I know Crush is going to be in there is because Crush is also going to be in the Future State story. If there are new characters, I'm okay with that as long as they, develop them along the way. And the only way you can do that, I would think, would be in a regular series run.
I did not recognize most of the people on the cover. But the cover, I think, is supposed to be more of a tease necessarily than telling us stuff. So I guess we'll have to really wait and see on that one. A lot of people are asking me what I think about who's Red X or who this stuff is. I'm just like, I don't know enough about any of this stuff. I'm just going to read it in March with you guys.
Really like that Batman pencil case. I really want the Batman pencil case.
That would be kind of nice.
That would have been so cute.
We also have announcements.
Late Christmas presents.
Yes. So if you want to get in touch with Steph, send us an email and give us all the Batman pencil cases.
No, don't.
We also had an announcement of Stephanie Phillips, who is writing the Harley Quinn Future State, is going to be writing Harley Quinn in the ongoing series. I don't know a ton about Stephanie Phillips. She's mostly worked on the more business side or editorial side, but she has written some fun stuff this last year. She wrote a really nice Red Tornado family story for the DC Cybernetics Summer Special. And she's written a couple of the Man of Tomorrow digital first stuff recently. So she's been getting into writing, so Harley Quinn should be fun. We'll have to see what it's like. And then our last one is Jean Lewin Yang and Ivan Rice are going to be doing Batman Superman, picking up from Josh Williamson. I think they are also doing the Future State stuff, so a lot of stuff that you see in Future State is leading to stuff in the main continuity, which is kind of cool, meaning that there's more of a sense that Future State matters, not just in terms of what happens, but in terms of this is the start of new creative teams on big titles.
Well, I think pretty much all of the Future State writers are taking over the regular books. I think that's what they said the plan was.
Well, we only have 8 announced titles for sure. So we know James Tynion is coming back with Jorge Jimenez on Batman. So John Ridley is not doing
Correct.
the main Batman title. He may do a spin-off Batman title, but we don't have an announcement of that yet. We know that James Tynion is going to have a new Batman book in addition to the main Batman book coming in March. My own personal theory on that is it's Gotham Knights, but I could be wrong. It could be any number of things. It could be Arkham War with Joker versus Bane. I don't really know. I'm just sort of speculating stuff based on what we've seen in Joker Warzone and sort of what he's been teasing on Twitter and so forth.
I'll keep speculating because I'm not ready for that story yet.
Well, yes, I think that we don't want...
I'm not ready for Joker yet.
Yeah, I think that it would be nice if Joker didn't come back till... I'd like 2022, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So, that's all the news. That's all the news I collected. Did you have any bits that you wanted to share, Theo or Steph?
No, for me, it was just, the idea of Tomasi dropping off of Detective and trying to figure out where he'll be popping up next. Batman and Robin.
Well, I'm hearing Superboy for Tomasi, and I'm hearing that it will be John, so I don't know if that's going to be a prequel or what, but that's what I'm hearing for Tomasi.
I might be okay with that. But Batman and Robin.
Even if it's not a prequel, like John being aged up does destroy the dynamic.
Well, that's why I said Superboy. I don't think it's going to be Super Sons again.
Yeah. But he did, like, no, I guess it wasn't him. But, oh gosh, now I'm trying to
that was Bendis.
Was that Ben? Well, was it Bendis that, gosh, I don't remember what book it was. Was it Superman where Superboy comes back one more time to say goodbye before he joins the What's It League?
Yeah, that was like Superman number 17 or 14 or something.
Yeah. So that was Bendis then, right? Who wrote that?
Yeah, I actually liked that issue. Some people were mad, but I thought it was cute.
No, and then so if it's an older Superboy and Damian comes up sometimes, I think that would be okay. It wouldn't be magic, but it would be okay.
So that's all the news that's fit for print or audio, I should say, this week. We do expect to have a lot more stuff to talk about for March come next episode, because I think, as I said, the solicits are going to drop on Friday.
I'm really excited that all that news did drop at Comic Experience.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fun. I wasn't expecting it, but
usually you would think you would have got it at New York Comic Con or something like that, but now they went to Brazil.
Well, I mean, so much of their creative staff are from Brazil on the artistic side, so it makes sense that they'd have a big presence there. All right, so let's get into our reviews. Our first review is Batman number 104.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Written by James Tynion IV, drawn by Guillaume March, Ben Gal, and Ryan Benjamin, with Danny Miki on inks for some of those, but not all of them. Ghostmaker stitches Batman up in a morgue, with Harley and Clown Hunter lying on gurneys nearby. Bruce and Ghostmaker talk, revealing that they are in Arkham, while Nightwing talks to Oracle/Batgirl over comms while he stops a robbery in Bloodhaven. Oracle notes that there's been a huge attack on crime all over Gotham in the last 6 hours, and Nightwing tells her that the one time he met Ghostmaker when he was Robin, and learned that Bruce and Ghostmaker used to be friends. Steph and Cass call in, Steph calling Babs Batgirl Prime, and herself one of the Batgirls, along with Cass, letting them know that Poison Ivy's left plants spelling out Arkham in Harley's new apartment. Clown Hunter and Harley wake up, and Bao, Clown Hunter, realizes that he's not bound like Batman and Harley are. Batman tells Harley she was present when Joker killed Bao's parents. Bao picks up a sword, preparing to torture Harley to death as Batman pleads with him to do the right thing. So, our penultimate issue of this arc, how are you liking it?
I think I'm liking it well enough. I know there's a lot of Hush undertones with Ghostmaker, but I think overall I'm enjoying it. It's a much different dynamic than Hush, because this is a friend that Bruce made while training to be Batman. So it's a more adult, more late teens, more developing together. Whereas with Hush, it was like they were children and Bruce didn't catch on the psychotic tendencies of his 10-year-old friend. So it's not copycat. It's not verbatim the same, but it does have a lot of similarities. I hated the art for Nightwing and the Oracle Nightwing scenes. Oh, I hated it. Oh, it's so ugly. I couldn't.
I enjoyed it.
I also enjoyed it, but I'm a fan of Bengal. I think he has a really cute cartoony style. But I know that our listener, Daniel, also really hated that art. So you are not alone, although you are alone on this cast.
Here's my thing, is that, okay, as you know, as awful as it is, you know, Nightwing is the eye candy for the people who enjoy a nice male form. And if you can't draw Nightwing in a way that's attractive, you fail. And so I was not attracted to this Nightwing. He looked like a blob, and I was not interested. So that's my standard. As shallow as that is, his stuff was cute. Like the Batgirls were cute. He did a good job there. But
she got a checklist. No eye candy. Fail.
And I mean, obviously, as pointed out to me online, oh no, what's gonna happen to Harley Quinn, the highest selling female anti-hero hero in DC? Oh no. But I am interested to see what it's going to take to change Bao's mind. So I am interested in that aspect of how is his either character going to change or attitude going to change. So that does have me a little bit interested.
Yeah, of the issues thus far in the arc, this was the most enjoyable. I ultimately think that somehow Bruce is gonna free himself and prevent Clown Hunter from killing Harley, because of course DC won't be killing Harley Quinn anytime soon, like never. Like I mentioned, I did enjoy the art. We often see where they have different artists in there to show shifts in time and place, and you kind of get this as well. But there was a good flow to the story, and it was a nice build, being that it is the penultimate of the story arc. So I still have interest, even though I'm still not a fan of Ghostmaker. Yeah, this was a good one for me.
I agree. I actually, this issue really kicked it up a notch for me. I've been enjoying this more than Jokerware. I liked Jokerware largely because I thought Jorge Jimenez's art was simply fantastic. But I think Tynan feels like he's off the leash. Like he's no longer trying to write a safe event comic for Batman to get sales up. It feels like he's like, well, here's my characters. Here's the characters I've really wanted to set up for, 6 or 7 years with, Stephanie and Cassandra. Here's how I'm going to set it up. I'm going to put my new characters in these situations and put them in conflict, and I'm going to build up Batman's supporting cast so they've got things to do and relationships with each other. And I just love that dynamic. I think that the flashback with Dick, I have never been that interested in Dick Grayson as Robin, but I think that the way Tynan wrote it, there's such a warmth between Dick and Bruce, and it's just really enjoyable, and it feels very distinct. And it's also partly because Guillaume March, who drew the flashback section, did such a fantastic job just showing the body language and the facial expressions of Dick and Bruce. And so I just was really drawn into that relationship, that warmth. The flashback just felt cool. And that also added a whole nother layer to Ghostmaker for me, because before this, he's just been kind of an antagonist. But the reveal that Bruce actually has regret that he couldn't persuade Ghostmaker to join him twice was really kind of touching. Like it gave Ghostmaker a more emotional and intellectual connection than the boyhood friendship of Hush as stepbrother. And I would completely agree. There's really a lot of DNA of a lot of DC's standard villain tactics, because you have, David Kane was one of Bruce's old teachers, and he shows up and he's one of the greatest assassins in the world that no one's ever heard of. Hush is one of the most brilliant mastermind villains that you've never heard of, and he was Bruce's childhood friend that you've also never heard of. I'm trying to think. There's at least one other major example of this before we get to Ghostmaker. But I mean, that's been going on since the late '90s when No Man's Land came out with David Kane. So this is not a new trope, and I do agree with the people who say that Ghostmaker doesn't have a lot new. But I think Tynan did a good job of connecting me to Bruce's regret here. So that was a really cool moment for me. And then, of course, the highlight of this issue was Steph calling in and saying Batgirls to Batgirl Prime. I just thought that was so fantastic. The personality that Steph displays, and Barbara's sort of surprised, but she's also like, yeah, I've been thinking about that. Like, that relationship is really the kind of relationship that you sort of saw in both Stephanie and Cassandra's runs as Batgirl, with Batgirl as a mentor, and she's, trying to give them the weight of her experience, but she's also got, her own struggles that she's dealing with. Like, I really hope that Tynan and whoever gets, whatever Bat Family or Batgirl book will take that dynamic and really play it for all it's worth, because it's a fantastic dynamic between those three characters, and they deserve to have it explored after so long where it's just been in the off panel. So that relationship showing up on the panel is the highlight of the issue in an issue full of highlights that I really liked. So
yeah, I had a few highlights as well, but just if you jump with me into my time machine, I will go back to when I first read the issue, and my reaction when I got to that page, it was like, if you could see me on video right now, you were like, Theo's having a stroke or something. But I was very excited when that panel popped up. I think the only thing that was probably more exciting for me, at least, was seeing Pixie Boot Robin in the flashback, which being the old timer that I am is always a good thing for me.
I agree. I just think there was a lot of richness to like about this issue, and I'm kind of sad that we're coming to the end of the arc next issue. I would have, even though it's kind of falling into the same trap, and I actually appreciate that it's going to just be like 5 or 6 issues. I appreciate that Tynan is really giving us a lot of meat in this stuff, as opposed to, it felt like not quite as much meat in his first 10-issue arc of Their Dark Designs. Like, it's the same structure, actually. Their Dark Designs was heavily flashback-oriented and very short time frame, so far only about 6 or 7 hours have passed in this story, but since it's only about 4 or 5 issues, that's not a big problem.
These shorter arcs work. I mean, not just with Batman, but across the board. I mean, when you have a 12-issue arc, aka Mr. Bloom, and even Dark Design, which was 9 or 10 issues. I mean, it's just so much potential to just fluff it everywhere, and that it's for me takes away from the story. It takes away from the overall story when you feel you have to fluff it up in order to get to the end point. And even in King's run on Batman, there were a lot of issues, even within some of his arcs, that he could have done without, to get to the end point. And I understand that, from an editorial timeline standpoint, there's reasons for them to either stretch or constrict arcs as they come and go. But these shorter arcs are just so much better.
So, we've already talked a little bit about the art. So there's 3 different artists, and I think that according to the way I'm reading it and understand the styles, Ryan Benjamin did the beginning and the end with Batman, Harley, and Ghostmaker. And then Ben Gal did the Oracle scenes with both Nightwing and the Batgirls. And then Guillaume March did the flashback. And I think that structure really works. It divides it so that each part feels like their own characters. So sometimes Tynan's done issues where he's had to switch between artists for the same scene, and I think that's just tricky. But he didn't do that for this one, so I think it works, even though I wish we'd had just one artist for the whole issue. And I'm going to do my rant again. I really hope that one of the things that happens in March is that we only have one issue per month.
Good luck with that.
I would really like it to see, just because I think they're not able to schedule artists, and I think they need to schedule artists to do whole arcs and whole issues. Even like whole issues is apparently too much to ask for in this this run for now. So I'm hoping to see an end of that in March, but I guess we'll know by Friday.
I think the only way that happens is if we're at this point, or whatever point that is in DC's head, where they can return to Legacy to hit 1,000 at a specific point in time.
Our mathematical readers will have to let us know where we are, because I think I heard that in issue 85 was actually issue 850 if you add together the New 52 and the post-crisis Batman. Well, actually, no, the 1940 Batman. So I think if you add those together, it was 850, which means that at 85, we're at 104. So that's 19 issues. Yeah, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I just think that they're looking years down the line, and they have an idea of when they want to hit 1,000, just like they had an idea of when they wanted to hit issue 100. And I'm kind of so with regards to double shipping, because you constantly have a book in your hand. But from an artistic standpoint, as Ian said, it can cause issues because it's tough for the regular artists to keep up, especially if they're on other projects. And even when they're not on other projects, just cranking out 2 issues a month is quite a task.
All right, so let's give our ratings for Batman number 104 out of 5 Pixie Boots. How many Pixie Boots do we want to give Batman 104?
I think... I don't know. I'm stuck in again. Like, I always feel like I'm giving things 3.5s. But I don't think it deserves a 4. But I really enjoyed it, and 3.5.
I will go with 4 pair of Pixie Boots, because you can't do 4 Pixie Boots because that's only 2 pair. So I would do 4 pair. Gotta have shoes.
I will also go with 4 pair of Pixie Boots, and so did Scott over on the website. So that's 4. I can't remember. Is it mean or average or?
It's average. Mean and average are the same thing.
Right.
It's a comic podcast.
Who
cares?
I think the mode is 4. So the mode review is 4 Pixie Boots out of 5.
It's a comic podcast. Call it whatever we want.
I suppose. All right. So, and now is the point in the podcast where I call for reviews. We'd love to hear what you think about this episode. Send us a message at TBU at thebatmanuniverse.net. And we did get an email this week, so I'm very happy that we're going to read that later. Thank you. We'd love to get more. We have got a message on our Discord server as well. And you can join that if you go to thebatmanuniverse.net and click on the invite link on the right-hand side. Our Twitter at TBU_comics. Or if you're a patron, on our Patreon page. Leave us a review on Stitcher or iTunes, and we'll be happy to read all of your comments and reviews on air. With that said, let's move to our next review, Detective Comics 1032.
Detective Comics 1032, written by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Brad Walker. Somewhere in Gotham, Hush is having a conversation with the captured Bat family as they all begin to stir from unconsciousness after the events of Detective Comics 1031. As they begin to speak, Hush tells them that he's paralyzed their vocal cords, taking his moniker to heart. Hush begins to reveal his plan to the silent family members. While Batman is distracted with all the anti-vigilante movements throughout Gotham, Hush wanted to move in to take the family down. As he begins to draw blood from Red Hood, Hush reveals that he will harvest their organs. In the skies above Gotham, Batman continues his search for Damian and has finally identified the location of Damian's hideout. As Batman drops down to the location of the old Gotham World's Fair, he begins to calculate the contingencies and booby traps his son has laid out for trespassers. Once inside, Bruce looks in appreciation at his son's base of operation. As he picks up his casebook, Damian pounces and attacks. Refusing to strike back, Batman urges his son to stop and to talk to him. As the two Waynes fall out of a window and onto another platform, Batman gets the upper hand, leading Damian to yield, for now. The next morning, Christopher Nakano's wife is egging him on to attend his long rescheduled appointment to receive his new prosthetic eye. Nakano is having second thoughts about the new eye, but proceeds with the procedure. As the doctor finishes the insertion and gives Nakano tips on keeping the prosthetic in shape, he informs Nakano that the prosthetic was upgraded with a donation from Bruce Wayne. This infuriates the mayoral candidate, who demands that the doctor remove the prosthetic. He does not want to be bought by the rich if he becomes mayor. Nakano slams the eye against the wall, shattering it into pieces as he leaves with his wife. Later that evening, Hush is speaking to someone on the phone about the results of some lab tests. The results, unfortunately for Red Hood, are promising, leading him to be the first that Hush will harvest organs from. Hush gloats over the idea of taking out the Bat family, all the while making millions while doing so. He knocks out Jason using chloroform. While this is happening, Bruce and Damian are swinging through the Gotham nightlight. They're in search of the missing members of the Bat family, who Batman realized were missing after receiving no response from them the night before. After squeezing some of the Gotham underworld, they feel they have identified the location of Hush's hideout. They dive in to make their move.
So, the first question I had is I just recently reread Paul Dini and Dustin Nguyen's arc, Heart of Hush, and in that, Hush removes Selina's heart, not because he wants to sell it, but as revenge on Batman for stuff that happened. But I kind of wish that Tomasi had made the connection between removing organs from the Bat family by Hush more of an explicit callback, because it seems very characteristic of him, but it wasn't mentioned in an editorial note or in dialogue. He didn't say, aha, I did this to Selina. How did you feel about Hush's actions in this comic?
I I mean, if you're going to be an evil guy and a surgeon, that makes sense. Why let a good body go to waste? If you're a psychopath and you have no feelings and no morality, then sure. I mean, it's a good business idea. I mean, you're destroying your enemy's force and you're making a buck. It's a great idea.
Yeah, it was a decent semi callback to Heart of Hush, and I appreciated that. But again, like Ian said, there were, some things that about Heart of Hush did not come to light in this issue, particularly the idea that Hush is looking for money now in his two birds with one stone mission to take out the family. But I'm okay with that. Maybe the point was to not directly link it to Heart of Hush. But it's kind of hard to do considering it's one of those stories that's out there and well known in the Batman universe. But I was okay with it.
So, next question. How have your thoughts changed about Nakano's character based on his scene with the prosthetic in this issue?
I don't know if it's changed. It is I don't know. It seems weird that you're okay with doing a fundraiser and asking rich people to fund your campaign at a fundraiser, but if one of them tries to help you out because you were damaged on their property, I don't know. Like, I can see how he thinks it's buying him off, but at the same time, it's also doing something nice. Like, there's not an expectation. Like, if it was, here's an eye, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I don't know. I feel like, I guess he's trying to avoid even the appearance of evil, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I don't think my opinion of him has changed. He seemed fairly anti-corruption, and that is an example of what could be corruption. Even though it was not meant as corruption, it can definitely appear as it. So I don't, my opinion of him has not changed.
Well, I think this issue, if anything, shows some political naivete on Nakano's part, and it's precisely because of what Steph mentioned. The idea that you could get on this yacht with a bunch of millionaires and billionaires and take their money to run your campaign, yet someone is looking to donate something to you for something that's more specific. I can see, again, Bruce Wayne doing this not just for Nakano, but for anyone considering that they were injured on his property. But then also, again, naive and not knowing who Bruce Wayne is as a person amongst the elite of Gotham. I've always known Bruce, even with his playboy ways, to be somewhat different than the rest of the Gotham elite. So my thoughts changed a little bit, but again, I guess it goes along with the character in that he is new to politics, and it definitely showed with that sequence of the issue. The other thing that kind of struck me was when, right before the procedure, he was speaking of the patch, being his mask, and how he rather enjoyed wearing it because it helped hide part of who he was, and it kind of makes him look almost like a hypocrite because he's this anti-vigilante, anti-mask candidate running for office, and yet he feels this need to have to wear the patch, to hide who he may truly be. And so as we get into Future State to see how the future Nakano is, and then once we return to the main series. I mean, we know in Future State he's the mayor, so we know how the arc is going to end. So it'll be interesting to see how Nakano transforms during the Future State era and back once we return to the main book.
I think that insight about him, the mask speech and how he appears hypocritical, is a really good insight. That whole scene just really decreased him. It was actually a significant change for me, partly because of that hypocrisy, but partly also because the sheer pettiness of breaking the eye prosthetic instead of just removing it and handing it back, and the pettiness of refusing to take it. Like, he's being very selfish and petty in this scene. And after last issue where he really took a strong stance against corruption, he was against helping Mirror, who gets no mention in this issue, so I wonder if we're going to get any commentary on him at all. I was disappointed. I mean, he's a fictional character, so I can't really be disappointed in him, but I was hoping he was going to have a little more moral fiber, but instead he just kind of feels like a small man instead of a big man who could be a real foe to Batman in a hard way to answer. But now he's just kind of immature and hypocritical, and so he doesn't seem like as much a threat because he doesn't have that moral authority to accuse Batman from anymore. But yeah, that was some really good commentary by both of you. The last question is, what are your thoughts on this arc, knowing that next issue is the last that Tomasi will be writing for Detective Comics, for now at least?
Well, he definitely didn't write enough Damian. And I just feel so sad that there wasn't a lot of relationship or even real characterisness of the family. Like, he had a lot of the family in there, but they were just there. Yes, sir. No, sir. Let's get trapped, sir. I don't know. It's kind of
plot points.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little disappointing, and I really hope he does well in his future endeavors. Like, really, really wish and hope that he does well in his future endeavors. But I'm okay with moving on from Tomasi in tech.
So I am, again, and I kind of said it earlier when we were going through the news, am a little down on the idea that this is next issue is going to be Tomasi's last. I thought this issue really started to get the groove that I was looking for, particularly with the interaction between Bruce and Damian. I think that is something that we were all looking for, to see them team up once again, even if it's temporary, but we know that, they're together. I was really looking to see how Tomasi would have been able to expand on that. And now we won't have the ability, at least in this book, to see that. Batman and Robin. But I'm hoping Tomasi is able to go out with a bang, and I'm expecting it to, seeing how the issue ended. With that panel of him and Damian dropping from the sky, like they're getting ready to just crash land into wherever this hideout, is, that they suspect Hush to be holding the family. But I'm a little disappointed because I really wanted to see Tomasi seem to have hit his groove, especially with, and we said it in past episodes, the Damian story was really the strongest of the 2 or 3 that we got in this arc, whether it was the short-lived Mera story, the story of Nakano, or the Damian story. It was the strongest, and you really saw it in this issue. And I was also able to get some laughs out of it too, especially in the different panels where Batman is calling Damian boy, and it's just like, are you done hitting at me, boy? So, I'm a little disappointed, hopeful that, we will see more from this sometime in the future. Batman, Robin. But until then, we'll see how it all ends in 2 weeks. Look out for my review.
I think this is a wasted opportunity, and I don't know how much of it was editorial and how much of it is creative. People look back and love Tomasi and Gleason's run on Batman and Robin, as Theo clearly shows because he wants it back. I really, really doubt that anyone's gonna look back and really love Tomasi and Mankey and Walker's run on Detective. They might have some fond memories, but this is not. It didn't create something as powerful as the Bruce and Damian relationship. It didn't have the same just really unique and strong visuals that Gleason provided. Not that Mankey and Walker weren't very good artists. They are, but they don't have the same unique voice that Gleason did. And when you look at the storytelling, there's a certain just retreadedness about it with all the cults and the sort of greatest hits approach to the villains. There are a couple of interesting twists with Two-Face and Mr. Freeze, but they weren't followed up on, so they probably won't stick. I just think that this run could have been something similar to his Batman and Robin run, but instead it felt kind of like marking time. And marking time for 2 years... Well, okay, let's see. This started an arc before 1000, and we're on 1032. So 32 divided by 2 is 16. So it's a little over a year and a half. And I just... At no point did this quite feel like one of the greats. It wasn't like the Paul Dini run, which didn't really have an overarching story, but it did have just these great one-shots and relationship stuff. Like he spent the whole first part of his arc repairing the relationship between Zatanna and Bruce. And then he spent the second half of his Detective Comics run, looking at Batman and Catwoman and Hush and that relationship. And then that spun out into Gotham City Sirens and Streets of Gotham. This one, it doesn't feel like there's anywhere it could really spin out. And I think that if Tomasi is headed to Superman, we'll probably see more connections to the Super Sons run rather than, to anything that happened in this run. Except maybe he'll have Damian and Bruce at a more reconciled relationship. But it's really not... I don't know how you can get to a more reconciled relationship in just one issue. Maybe he can, but I think that is probably going to have a slight motion rather than the big motion that I think most of us would prefer.
I will definitely agree with all your comics. All your comments. I'll take your comics too. But
no, they're mine. They go in my long box.
Oh my God! I will never buy another long box again. This definitely wasn't a memorable run. There were so many points within it, though, where you got hints of what could have been. Whether you're looking at the Arkham Knight run, where again, Damian is there, and there's this conversation between he and Bruce is saying, we haven't been on the same accord, but at some point when this is over, you and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk this out. And Damian's like, I look forward to it. And I'm like, yes, I need that. I want that. And like you said, it was just never followed up on. There were the points with Freeze and with Two-Face and how, they may have been turning a corner. And again, this is something I can deal with. And again, never follow up on. And then again, you have this interaction between Bruce and Damian after Damian has given up the Robin mantle. And again, not saying that Tamaki won't follow up on this, but I'm not going to keep my hopes up. But even if she does, the notion that Tomasi is not going to be doing this, which has been his forte for so long, going back to the run on Batman and Robin, and just so many missed opportunities that DC did with this title. And again, I'm gonna say it probably is more editorial than anything, and I'm only saying that because I've specifically have spoken to Tomasi with regards to where he was going with Detective. It's possible that we could see more interaction with Bruce and Damian, and he point blank telling me, I've been told that I needed to go this direction and I can't touch Damian for right now. So I think a lot of issues with this run, just as we've seen with a lot of other titles, is editorial, or even higher up than editorial, can't get out of their way. And it brings a book down so much. And that's the disappointing part of it, because I know Ian isn't a fan of Tomasi, but I am, and I know he is a good writer. And yeah, it's just I'm gonna end my mini rant on that. It's just a lot of missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful, and I agree that Tomasi has it in him. I just think that for whatever reason, it didn't come out. And I hope that whatever he does next, it really does get that sense back. Because, you look at Batman and Robin, you look at his Superman run, and those are beloved runs. And of course, Super Sons, which I sort of consider part of his Superman run. I just think that this Detective Comics run won't be one of the real jewels in his writer's crown. So let's give this a rating out of stolen body parts. Out of 5 stolen body parts, how many do you give this comic?
We didn't really talk about the art, but I think I like the art better in this one than the overall art in Batman. And
Me too.
And I thought the story was good. I would say I like this one better, so I'll give it a 4 out of 5 body parts.
Which parts are they?
All their hearts.
So I will not stray from the rating on my review. Despite my mini rant, this issue was very good, and it was probably so simply because we had Brad Walker and gang back on the art, which has always been a thing for me. But also, this issue was heavy on Damian. We didn't have to worry about the Bat family looking like buffoons who didn't know that they were being set up. We had that story of Bruce and Damian fighting it out and coming to a truce, and that was something I was really looking forward to, and we got hints of it again with this issue. So for me, it was a 4 as well.
I am going to give it a 3 out of 5. Brad Walker, I look at his stuff and I'm like, I liked him on Aquaman. I don't know what it is about him on Batman that makes me feel weird, but I really liked the line work on Aquaman. I thought it was really cool. And on Batman, it just feels a little alien. So I'm going to go with a 3 out of 5 stolen body parts. Our next section is Greater Gotham. So it's a little different than last time when Dustin had the Greater Gotham section, but we are going to touch on some of the major, not all of it, it's never going to be exhaustive, but some of the major Batman universe titles that are not the main book. And not all of us have read them all, so if we haven't read them, we'll just, not pass, and we're not going to give ratings, we're just going to sort of give a quick or more extended appreciation of what we liked about that issue. So our first one up is the long-awaited, year and a half in the making, Batman Catwoman #1, written by Tom King, artist Clayman, with colors by Tomu More. So what do you guys think of Batman Catwoman #1?
It's definitely a thumbs up for me. It wasn't what I was expecting. That kind of seems to be the general consensus of that book. It's definitely takes place pretty much right after Batman Annual #2, right? With Batman dying in his bed at an old age, and then weaves the present into it. And there's a lot of jumping around. So it definitely probably is going to require a few rereads, especially like as a whole, as a whole story. But I like that. I like having to think. I like not just, sometimes I like to just sit there and, mind-numbingly read a comic through and enjoy it. But having to think, having to keep track of, okay, what tense are we in right now? what is not a bad thing. So I definitely give it a thumbs up and enjoyed it.
For me, Batcat was more of a neutral leaning thumbs up, but the primary reason I think was probably just the jumping around in time, and that drew me the first time that I read it. And I know Steph mentioned it seemed more of a follow up to directly after Annual 2, which I'm in agreement with. But, for some reason, I couldn't get the idea of King's story with Walt Simonson out of my head as well, and how, Bruce died from getting sick as well. But I will probably have a better appreciation for it on a reread, but I think I will need to get a couple of issues in before doing that. The time jumps can just throw you off.
And because there's so many time jumps with different strands of the story, you actually don't get that much story altogether, because you're telling so many bits of so many bits. It is a little... As long as it was, it still seems pretty short.
I'd agree. This is very much set up. So it's setting up, the past where Bruce and Selina and Joker and Andrea are all interweaving as very young people at the beginning of their adulthood. And then you have the quote-unquote present timeline, which is after King's Batman run. And I am very curious to know if this is after the Catwoman 80th short story where Helen is born. I wonder if this is before or after that, because this is a new Catwoman costume. It's gray with some panels, and I really like it. And that's when Andrea comes back and Joker kills her son, apparently. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of swerves, but that's apparently what happened. And then we have after Bruce died, which seems to be the main meat of the story so far, where Catwoman finds an aged Joker and says she's going to kill him. And maybe he'll die next issue. There's some signs that that'll happen. And I think that would be very surprising. But so much of King's stuff is really laying down tracks and then building the train's momentum until it's just a juggernaut that obliterates your heart in the end. And that's kind of what I'm expecting from Batcat 2. So...
Was the Joker reveal a surprise to anyone?
Yes.
Oh, it was to me.
I kind of figured that's who it was. The only thing that really got to me was the fact that somebody had multiple kids with him. So that was his kids and grandkids he was showing to Selina. So that was the only thing that kind of drew me. But I kind of figured that that's who the old man was, so it wasn't that big of a surprise.
I also wanted to comment that holy goodness, the art was amazing.
Yes.
Just the line work, the relationships, the acting, the atmosphere, the coloring, of course, is just rich and detailed. It is a gorgeous book, and I am glad to be having that in my collection just for that alone. I mean, obviously, I was a huge fan of the art on The Beach, and this is very much similar to those two issues.
And I know a lot of people were upset at the fact that it was being delayed, but the idea that they delayed it simply so Clay could do all of the issues, I am A-okay with that.
And one note I wanted to point out that someone pointed out to me was that the beginning with the house and the little silent night for the issue's title in the window, there are 12 windows in that house. So I think that we're going to see windows opening throughout the series as sort of a structural device. And I thought that was cool. So yeah, I think it's clear that we all really enjoyed Bat-Cat #1. Our next big excited issue was Black and White #1. So this is sort of a relaunch of the famous series that originally started as backups in Gotham Knights and has had various resurrections over the years. We had a lot of different stories. Not all of us read this one, but I wanted to highlight the James Tynion story, The Fist of Ra's al Ghul, or The Fist of the Demon, and that's a story of one of Raz's ninjas, and he gets one punch at Batman, and then Batman beats him. And it was just kind of a fun little story about being part of a big ongoing fight. Very odd art by Trad Moore, who's not Travis Moore, about who I will have much more to say in the next Greater Gotham issue. But it was I liked Tynion. I thought he had something fun to say there. But it didn't really have much to say in terms of a long connection. Tynion hasn't really touched Ra's in a significant way before, other than League of Shadows in his Detective Comics run. The other piece I really liked was Paul Dini's short story with Andy Kubert, and it's actually a follow-up to Batman and Son with the Man-Bat Ninjas of Talia. And I actually really liked that connection. I thought it was building on an idea in a new way, and Andy Kubert being the original artist of the original Batman and Son arc was just a fun connection. So those were the two stories I wanted to highlight from Black and White. I didn't think it was a fantastic issue overall, but I enjoyed those two.
Do it, Steph. Do it.
Oh, no, I mean, I thought you meant you were just going to skip me. But I did not read it, but I tried. I don't know if it's because I tried right after lunch or whatever, but the art of the first one literally made me sick to my stomach. I don't know what it was. There were so many
It is a very disorienting art.
I was getting vertigo just trying to read it. And then I just kind of skimmed through the whole thing, and I saw like wrinkly, angry Batman. I was like, I'm not in the mood to read this. So I skipped it. I skipped the whole.
I will say I got bad Raleigh Rossmo vibes with that first story. And it was almost Rossmo on crack. It was just so that it was really out there. The story was great, but the art could really throw you off as you're trying to figure out and form where one person begins and another ends, and you can barely see that fist come, but you can see Bruce looking at it. For me, that story was okay. The two stories that really stood out for me was the G. Willow Wilson story with Killer Croc. I thought that was really nice. And I also enjoyed the Paul Dini story with the throwback to the Batman and Son arc. Again, anything that goes that route is A-okay with me. For the rest of it, I don't know. I felt I was in my English lit or my American lit class and forced to read a bunch of prose, and I just didn't feel those other stories. And like Ian said, it was an okay issue, But from a thumbs up, thumbs down, this was a neutral heading down for me.
Which, for those of you following our rating system, is actually a 2. Our last issue that I wanted to mention was a late edition. It's Dark Knight's Death Metal, Last Stories of the DC Universe. And there's only one Batman-related title directly in it. It's a 6 short story collection in an 80-page giant, connecting, of course, to the Death Metal event. Unfortunately, the Batman story is called The Bat Family in We Fight for Love, written by Cecil Castellucci. And if anyone has tuned into Batgirl to Oracle recently, you will know how I feel about Cecil Castellucci writing The Bat Family. I will give you a spoiler here. It is not positive. This is better than Batgirl number 50, but that's like saying a broken leg is better than a pulverized spine.
Very low bar.
It's a very low bar. The art is fine for this one. Barbara, for some reason, is in her Burnside costume. I wanted to highlight this because the bigger story for me was there's a framing story by Josh Williamson, James Tynan, and Scott Snyder, drawn by the amazing Travis Moore and colored by Tamara Bonvillain. It is so gorgeous. It is Donna Troy, Wonder Girl, meeting with all of the people who have been Teen Titans or Young Justice Leaguers or Titans, including the Dark Titans from Christopher Priest's run on Deathstroke, including the Young Justice from Bendis' run recently. So you have Stephanie Brown and Superboy and Wonder Girl, Cassie and Tim Drake, and you have the classic Donna, Gar, Roy, Wally, and there's a really emotional scene with Wally after Heroes in Crisis and Donna. It's just very well done. There's also a really lovely story by Gil Simone and drawn by the amazing Megan Hetrick, in which the Green Arrow and Black Canary have a really nice little date before the end of the world. There's a great Superman story written by Mark Waid and drawn by Francis Manapool. Just a lot of really fun stories. And even though I would actually rate the Batman universe story the least, the Batman connections in the Titan story, I think still are worth checking out if you're willing to check out a longer anthology. But it is still a good price per page if that's something that matters to you.
I only read the Batman story. I kind of skimmed through the other ones and just saw who's in there. I think I did read. I love Green Arrow, so I skimmed that one too. But I took my time skimming that one. It was fine. Death Metal definitely is not continuity. It really hacks me off that Jim Gordon was taken off the table because of all that. It has nothing to do with anything. Oh, whatever. Babs and Nightwing are married now, apparently. unless they don't die, then they're not married anymore, which is just great. Yeah, actually, so yeah, I went ahead and read the newest Nightwing because I was like, is he? I know it's not in continuity, but is he just totally cheating on B, or what's going on here? And no, that Nightwing sucked. But he's not with B anymore, so it's okay that he's married to Oracle now. Whatever. It was fine. The art was good, and it was fine. It was fine.
So this was an obvious setup from Ian on me because Ian knows that I avoid all things metal, and anything metal will not find its way into my reading panel. I am not.
I would like to say that I told them they didn't have to read anything on this list.
But I will say, when it comes to Cecil Castellucci and her writings of the Bat Family, Ian speaks for me. So,
and if you want to hear 2 hours of me speaking for Theo, check out Batgirl to Oracle.
But I may skim, since I skimmed through a few of the pages. I may look at the Titan story, seeing that it is a pretty short one, but the whole metal dark multi-universe mess. I was suckered in for metal simply because of how things ended with uh, No Justice and all that. But Batman Who Laughs, the dark multi-universe, all that mess. I avoid almost like the plague. I have no interest in it. It's not me. So from that standpoint, I'm gonna give it an abstain, trending way down.
All right, that's our Greater Gotham. Look forward next episode for a very enthusiastic title that we shall let you guess, but it may have something to do with a certain whispering that you're hearing right now. But I hope you like this Greater Gotham. If you have any suggestions on something you'd like to have us make a quick mention of, please let us know on the Discord or through email, all the standard commenting ways. And now we will get to our listener feedback.
Sorry to interrupt, Master Booth. Ringing your phone now. This needs my attention.
First off, we have an email.
Email TBU. I'm not sure why I felt the need to reach out to you, but I've been wondering how no one has brought up creating Lee Bermejo's Batman Noel animated movie. Something like Polar Express or Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol. They would not be like Polar Express or Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol. Ever since the book came out, this is all I can think about. I guess I figured you guys had a big enough platform to where if any group could get the wheels turning on something of this nature, it would definitely be you guys. I enjoy the heck out of the podcast and wish you guys all the best. Cheers, Channing. Well, okay, so here's the thing about DC movies. Or animated movies, anyway. Which if they did Noel, it would be an animated movie. Hush is one of the prettiest stories out there. It was an ugly movie. They do not put the effort into the art that they should. And Batman Noel, which I bought thinking this will be my new Christmas tradition. Oh my gosh, is there a lot of violence and swearing and that's not Christmas appropriate? It's not a Christmas movie. It's set at Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie. Unless they do the art justice, there's no point. There's no point in doing it. It would just suck. I mean, Hush was okay. The spin changing the bad guy was fine, but the whole point of Hush has how pretty it is because Jim Lee's art was beautiful, and Lee Bermejo's art is beautiful, and the movie would not be good because they were not going to do him justice unless he animates it. They're not going to do him justice.
I think that's an extremely reasonable response, although I would say that they put a fair amount of money and design into Dark Knight Returns Parts 1 and 2. So they have, but I think that in a general rule, they don't. So I tend to agree. I think that it wouldn't be the greatest of ideas.
Yeah, I agree. I would love if doing the art justice would be the main reason to do that in an animated film. We all know that DC, from a cinematic standpoint, does a much better job with their animated universe than their cinematic universe. However, for a story such as Noel, or even Batman Noir, which was kind of set in that same frame of time, or at least from that same continuity with Lee Bermejo, you got to do the art justice. Anything other than, if you can't find an animator that can mimic Lee's style of drawing, it's just not worth it. And this is for someone who absolutely loved parts 1 and 2 of The Dark Knight Return, but absolutely hated what they did with Hush simply because of the swerve at the end. The fact that, but that's another day, another time. But yeah, I would love it, but I just don't think they would be able to hit it with the art, and the art is what made both of Bermejo's stories worth it, despite the violence. But I think the precedent has been set. If Die Hard is a Christmas movie, so can Noel.
All right, so let's move on to our Discord comment from Sean Wolf.
Sean Wolf says, I hope that you are all well and in great spirits. I just wanted to let you know how much that I enjoy the podcast with both you and Theo. Aw, is that not me? I guess I wasn't there. I have the Nora and Victor. Yeah, that's true. I have the Nora and Victor youth graphic novel and will read through that during my lunch break today. Have a great day, and I look forward to the next segment.
So I appreciate that a lot. I thank Sean for always being such a faithful listener and commenter. I did read Victor and Nora. I kind of approached it as a villain origin story. So I think some people read it expecting Victor and Nora to be more heroic. But to me, they were kind of, normal with some real temptations to go bad. So in that perspective, I think that story made a lot of sense. I'm a little tired of DC's young adult novels always having this two-toned look instead of a full color look, but it was still quite readable.
I did not read it. I'm sorry.
That is okay.
The whole that last young adult one with the teenage Bruce and gang.
Oh,
and
Gotham High.
That was terrible. That kind of turned me off to the young adult stories.
Well, I'm excited for the House of L, which is going to be a prequel to the Krypton storyline. I think it's sort of a Romeo and Juliet storyline. So I'm kind of excited about that, and I really like the writer Claudia Gray because she wrote a similar type of story for Star Wars called Lost Stars. But as a whole, I think the YA stuff is kind of missing the mark, with a couple of major exceptions, which I think I've highlighted here before.
I have the Catwoman one, the Under the Moon or whatever, and then the Bruce one, the
Night Stalker. Nightwalker, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I said Gear Metal Solid. I think that's not right.
Wait, do you mean to tell me you didn't read Overdrive?
No, yeah, Overdrive. That's the one. Yeah. No, that's the one I read.
Okay.
And they were cute. It definitely isn't, Batman. Brr, I am the Knight. But they were both cute and fine. I mean, they could literally have been about anyone. There wasn't too much that made him Bruce Wayne or her really Selena Kyle, but they were cute.
All right. Thank you, Sean and Channing, for writing in. I forgot to ask my co-host for a question of the week, so I guess we'll figure it out now. What do you think we should ask our listeners?
Batman and Robin or Super Sons?
Do you want to talk about HBO Max dropping 4K movies next year? And what we're excited about? / Batman.
Sure.
Wonder Woman.
Wait, is it next year? I thought I read that there was going to be with the
starts with
the Wonder Woman release.
Wonder Woman. That's next year.
But that's
Whatever.
just like a week before next year. So
a week before next year.
It's still 2020.
So our question is, HBO Max is going to get the same day and date release of movies, and unlike Mulan for Disney Plus, I think it's going to be for all subscribers. Now, you won't be able to get a free week or month or however long the trial is, but you will not have to pay extra for the brand new movies. So what are you excited about for next year? I think for me, it's definitely going to be, of course, Wonder Woman and the Suicide Squad and the Batman. But what about my co-hosts, and what about you, our listeners?
Definitely that. I'm quickly scanning through the list. I'm honestly probably more excited about Wonder Woman than Batman. Although Batman, it looks fine. It just looks a little creepy. And I'm not a super fan of creep. Ugh, Matrix 4. Ugh.
I forgot to mention, I'm also excited about Dune and the Snyder Cut, of course.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm definitely, Snyder Cut, definitely.
No, definitely not.
No,
I will. So, yeah, I don't want to go on a rant, and I don't want the Snyder folks to try to kill me. So I'm gonna keep my thoughts to myself. But the whole release the Snyder Cut thing was just too much for me. And even now that it's being released, there's still gripes and crying, and then it leads into the whole Ray Fisher thing. So I just rather not discuss it. I've been holding off on getting HBO Max simply because of the lack of 4K. But now that I see that they are going to be supporting it with the release of Wonder Woman, I guess I will go ahead and sign up. As far as the movies that I am excited for, I am interested to see what they do with The Matrix 4, and then, of course, Batman. But off the top of my head, other than those two, there's not much of there's not much of a line that I am super excited for. Of course, I will watch Wonder Woman 1984, but as they constantly pushed it back and pushed it back and pushed it back, I lost the interest that I first had for it. But we'll see if my thoughts change after Christmas.
Side Squad. It's going to have Idris Elba, Nathan Fillion, and John Cena. That makes me a little more excited about that movie.
Until I can see Idris Elba as James Bond, yeah.
Be cool too. Oh, yeah.
All right. I also think Idris Elba would be a pretty fantastic Bond, although he's quite old for the part now. Kind of missed the boat on that. Who's making that? Sony? Missed the boat, Sony. No shade on Daniel Craig. I think he's a very good Bond, but Idris Elba's pretty awesome. All
watch
right.
Luther.
What?
No, just saying, if you want to see something close, watch Luther.
Oh, I have watched Luther. And of course, The Wire. I think Idris Elba's just a fantastic actor. Okay, so listeners, what HBO Max movies are you excited about? I think I mentioned the Batman. If I didn't, I'm ashamed, and I'm excited about the Batman because this is the Batman Universe comic podcast. I appreciate all of you. I especially appreciate our Batfan supporters. So that is Gerald Green, Joshua Lappin-Bertoni, Rob O, Real No Deuces, Tim Garassi, Robert Lewis, Stephanie Mounts, Donovan Morgan Grant, Ian Miller, Stanton's Grave, Theodis Wright, Donald Townsend, Ed Grouse, Brendan Roberts, Hannah Garr, Captain America, Mary Garnett, Austin Davis, Johnny McCloskey, Sam Isag, and Cody. Thank you all for your support. You help us to continue this podcast for another year. I think this has been, despite the disruption, we had our 300th episode with fantastic anthology issues to cover. We had all of our special guests. We had a brand new format. We had new runs with James Tynan. This was an exciting year of the Batman Universe Comic Podcast, and I'm very excited to come to our finale next episode. So tune in next time, and please give us your answers. Until then, I have been Ian.
This is Steph.
And this is Theo.
And we will see you.
This is Steph. Sorry. Do it again.
Which part?
Theo.
Huh? Dude.
Say your name. I think I talked over you, so.
You did?
I did.
I mean, I'm used to it. People just talks over me.
I didn't know if I cut out again, so I just repeated myself.
Oh. This is Theo.
And we'll see you next time on the Batman Universe Comic Podcast.